All right, looks like we have everybody, a lot of folks in here. So good afternoon, everyone. We'll go ahead and get started. And I know there's some other folks that will still be joining us as we move through this afternoon's presentation. For those of you that don't know, my name is Brian Osmond. I am the Agency Relations Manager here at the Food Bank. For today's meeting, I just want to go over a couple of housekeeping things. We'll have throughout the presentation, we'll have different speakers from our leadership team. We should have some time at the end for some questions. We do ask that we keep questions on topic. We want to make sure that, the questions that are being asked about the information that's being provided today so that we have the opportunity to provide clarification if there is any needed. If there's any additional questions outside of what we're discussing today, please feel free to message our agency relations team. In a minute, I will put the agency info email in the chat. So if you do have questions, please reach out to us via email, via phone, and we can help clarify or answer any of those questions. So again, we'll get started, and I want to introduce Karen Belcher, our President and Chief Executive Officer, to share some information and what we kind of know at this point with you. So go ahead, Karen, you should be able to unmute.
Oh boy. Thanks, Brian. I'm so sorry, guys. I'm having some major technical difficulties here today. So, don't mind me. Okay, so I think I want to start by just, thanking all of you for taking the time today. And Brian may have already just said this. I apologize with my audio issues I was having. I did not get to hear what he shared, but I know that things are kind of crazy for all of you, just like they are for us right now. And I just want to thank you for taking the time, giving us some time with you to share what we know and what we've been doing currently to help support you as we move into this next week. So thank you. I think we all are under the same impression that the looming 11/1 date is probably going to keep us right where we are right now, which is with our SNAP benefits looking like they will be paused for our neighbors who currently are recipients of SNAP. Our hope is that this does not happen. But at this time, I think what we are hearing from those who we are talking to, there is not a large possibility that they will be funded. So, this is a huge impact to our neighbors, to our communities that we're serving. And you will see that as your lines get longer. So, I'm going to probably leave a lot of this to Becky to update even more. But at this time, that is what we are expecting as far as SNAP is concerned. WIC, we are hearing that WIC will be funded through some Section 32 funding, which comes from the tariffs that are being generated currently. So WIC will be continued to be supported through these funds while this shutdown continues. So, a little good news there. Just this week, and I'm not sure if the letters have gone out or not, but we were in the process of sending you all the HIPNAP legislative ad funding. We had not been awarded the funds, but we knew that by getting these dollars to you, it was going to support what you were going to, see or starting to see as far as increased need at your programs. I am happy to say that as we were in the process of sending the letter with a partial allocation, we got awarded the full funding. That was part of the governor's announcement earlier this week. So we are able to allocate the whole amount of funding out to all of you, and you should be receiving those letters, and those dollars will be available to you in the next day or two. And I know Michael's going to talk and update at the end here, so hopefully he can share exactly if those are available as of Friday or if they're available as of Monday. So we can give you the exact date. So that leads me to the announcement. So obviously, very appreciative of these dollars that we get every year. So the 22 million additional that gets allocated into the legislative ad funding. So we are just thankful that they are here and we can get those to you. And then I guess on a good note, there is the report today that there is 65 million being added into the state. I don't have a lot of background information on this yet. We have a meeting tomorrow morning with the state and Department of Health to hear, what the makeup of this funding looks like. But our understanding is that there is an increase to our HIPNAP funding as well as our Nourish New York funding. So that's gonna hopefully mean more food dollars to you, as well as some more Nourish New York product out from, into the communities from our local growers, local farmers and producers. So as soon as we know more about that, we will share that with you, what the timing of that looks like. But this is, the governor has declared a state of emergency, and these funds are coming from that to help support the need that will that they're anticipating to see from, the 3 million SNAP households across the state who are potentially going to lose that funding come 11/1. As far as our response, and I don't want to steal the thunder from everybody else, but we started convening last week around disaster mode planning again. So we have our core groups that's looking at, operations to advocacy to funding, the administrative piece, and we are currently in the process of doing week 1 planning and week 2 planning. And really honing in on what do we need. We know that food is going to be a high priority for all of you. We know for every meal that we distribute, SNAP distributes 9. That's a really big gap, and we know that SNAP is that first line of defense for our food insecure neighbors. That gap can't be filled by anyone, and we know this. This is across the nation. This isn't just here in Central New York. I mean, all the food banks, all our partners know, this gap is going to be not able to be filled 100%. But are we certainly going to try to fill it as much as we can? Absolutely. So the goal has been looking at what food is here, what do we need to get in, how frequently are we bringing that in. So we have allocated, about a week ago, we allocated around $1 million of funding to get food into the food bank. And we just said, I want another $1 million in this warehouse as soon as possible. So they are starting to purchase another $1 million of food. So we'll have $2 million of food coming through here very quickly, so that it's here to support the need that you're seeing as next week unfolds. We also are looking at what we need from a staffing component. Do we need to add some drivers? Do we need to add some warehouse staff? What does this mean from a volunteer standpoint if we're packing some boxes for some pop-ups? All these things are the pieces that we're looking at currently to help support what you are going to be seeing from this, not being funded as we are used to SNAP being funded. So I know that I'm probably missing something in all of this. I apologize. I feel like we have been getting calls and emails and texts pretty frantically here today, and I was late because I was coming from another meeting. So if I think of something else, I definitely will jump back on, Brian. But I think the only other thing I want to share is, our goal from a communication standpoint is just like it was during COVID with all of you. We want to make sure that you have the most recent information, that we're upfront with you about what we're hearing, what we're seeing, what's available to us, how we're responding. And what we're going to do is make sure that we're keeping those communications coming to you. And they're going to be in the form of an email. The one that we just sent last week, it said right at the top, this is an internal document. Please do not share this. And I really need to reiterate that we're going to be really forthcoming, very honest, very transparent with all of you, because you're our partners in this. I mean, you are really in the front lines, serving the neighbors every day, and we want you to have the information, but we ask, please don't share that. We're sharing it with you so that you have it, but we need you to keep that confidential. The items that you can share will be what we post on our social media. So please feel free to share any social media posts and get that out to the community as much as you can, share those, but the actual emails that you're going to receive from us during this time, if it says that at the top, we're please do not share that information, because that's how misinformation can start. And we just want to make sure that what we're sharing with you is for you, so that you can figure out how you want to go forward with your operations based off of what we're sharing with you. I think that's it. If I think of something else that I have missed, I'm hoping that somebody else grabs it as we go down through our staff here today to give you some updates. But again, thank you for everything. We've done this before. This is what we do. And we're going to get through this together. So please know we are here for you. Call us, let us know what you're hearing and seeing. We're here. So thank you for everything you're doing, and we will get through this. I am going to pass it to Becky, our Vice President of Government Relations, so that she can kind of update you in a little more detail about what's going on.
Thank you, Karen. So yes, I'm just going to level set and do a bit of a refresher on how we kind of got to this point. So during the shutdown, we knew that October SNAP benefits would be okay to begin with. And we kept saying, as this progresses, we might start seeing impacts to some of these really key federal nutrition programs. And the shutdown has progressed. So obviously the impacts have gotten more significant. So in addition to affected federal employees and military personnel, questions around pay and disrupted paychecks. That has all been going on and being addressed in different ways, or there are folks who have missed their paychecks. And now we're also seeing the impacts to some of these federal nutrition programs. So as we got closer to November, we were waiting to hear some guidance, and by we, I mean the state, some guidance from USDA on what their plans were around November SNAP benefits. USDA has a contingency fund, and if you've been following the media, you've probably seen this mentioned. The contingency fund has a fairly significant amount of money in it. It's not enough to meet the full November SNAP caseload, but it is a significant source of funds, and the argument is that that's what the funds are intended for. It's to address any potential disruptions to the program and to make sure that folks still receive benefits. So that was our advocacy focus, was on those funds and making sure that those funds were being authorized to be used. And then also the hope that additional dollars would be tapped into to make sure that November SNAP benefits were fully funded. On Friday last week, USDA made clear that they had no intent of tapping into those contingency funds. So that is when everything really escalated. And you'll have seen like the language and messaging shift as a result of that. Now we've gone into how do we prepare for this disruption to November SNAP benefits versus saying November SNAP benefits may be available. Also, in response to that, 25 states attorneys general, along with the District of Columbia, filed suit against the government, saying that they have to fund November SNAP benefits, that they need to tap into that contingency fund. And I will tell you that in the last hour, it does sound like a federal judge is planning to issue a ruling later today on that lawsuit. So we may have some news to share with you either this evening or tomorrow, depending on what comes out from that. So fingers crossed on that there is a ruling that those funds have to be released, and that states are able to quickly get all of this moving. So like I said, this stuff is all evolving very quickly. In addition to that potential, the impact of this is potentially massive. And from a political perspective, it has created a higher sense of urgency in Congress to do something. So we don't have a ton of hope around standalone funding bills being passed. There have been initiatives in both the House and in the Senate to a standalone piece of legislation to make sure that SNAP is funded. I'm not super hopeful that that's going to move forward, but it does sound like negotiations have picked up around what's called a short-term continuing resolution. So that is a funding package that would maintain current funding for a short amount of time. So that has a higher likelihood of happening. And like I said, it does sound like in the last probably 18 hours that those negotiations have picked up. So as Karen said, we are really trying to make sure that you're getting timely communications when we have updates and when new information is available. So please stay tuned for that, both on our social media, our website, as well as those email communications. So along with that, I will be sharing in the chat once I hand it off to our next speaker, a link to a click to action that you can start sharing out and using. This was put together by our partners at Feeding New York State. So it's very similar to what we've done for like New York State budget advocacy, where you put in your contact information and your address information, and it will populate with your specific elected officials. And it will pre-populate a message that you can customize if you want. You don't have to. And then it will send an email communication to our members of Congress asking them to come to an agreement, make sure that folks are receiving their November SNAP benefits and what that impact looks like if they don't. So again, feel free to customize that. You were coming from a very specific lens that not a lot of people have, where you can say, I know what the impact this is going to have on my neighbors. I know what impact this is going to have on the folks who are turning to me as a coordinator or a volunteer at a partner agency, and the impact on what that will be for you. So that's where everything stands with SNAP as of this moment. So again, the kind of two big potential items are most timely this afternoon, if there is that ruling from the federal judge around that lawsuit, as well as the potential for increased negotiations around ending the shutdown sometime next week, if they end up moving forward with a short-term CR. So along with all of that, this is completely separate from the shutdown, but we wanted to make sure that you're aware of another change that's happening with SNAP that is very time sensitive and timely. But I just want to make sure that it's very clear to you that this is separate from the shutdown. So I'm going to do a little bit of background information before handing it off to Amalia Swan, who is one of our SNAP experts. So through HR 1, which was the budget reconciliation bill, that legislation that was passed earlier this year, and it was signed into law in July. You've heard me talk an awful lot about this legislation because it had such significant impacts and changes to the structure of SNAP. One of those pieces that we want to talk about quickly today is around ABAWS, which is able-bodied adults without dependents. So in that legislation, it changed the parameters and guidelines and the populations that are subject to meeting these requirements. We were waiting to hear from USDA when this was going to go into effect. New York State has operated under a waiver for a very long time. The state received communication from USDA earlier this month that waiver would be ending early. So that waiver has expired and effective November 2nd. And these new changes will be going into effect as of that date. So I'm going to turn it over to Amalia so that she can give you more background on what she's been hearing from the counties and local districts and what this will look like in the role that all of us can play in making sure that SNAP households who are affected by this are aware of what's going on, because there's an awful lot happening with SNAP right now, and it's all very important for folks to be aware of. So Amalia, I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks, Becky. As Becky said, this ABOD rule, it's been around for a while, but we were exempt from it due to the unemployment rate. It affects a specific population of adults ages 18 to 64, as Becky said, without children, without a child under 14. No, I said that wrong. Adults age 18 to 64 without a child under the age of 14. You must work, train, or volunteer at least 80 hours a week to keep their SNAP benefits longer than 3 months. The local districts are working very hard to get clarification out, additional paperwork out, because it really does, it's 80 hours a month. And they're working really hard to get the paperwork out and determine what they're supposed to, what that paperwork will look like, how it's going to be submitted. So they're working really hard to get that done. And to be able to track. We did have at one point exemptions. There are still exemptions if that person is disabled. They are exempt. But at one time, homeless populations, veterans, and foster youth 18 years and older were also exempt. They are no longer exempt. So it's kind of crazy, but they're trying to work it out. But what this means is that by March 1st, we have to prove that either their individuals are working 80 hours a month or doing some type of volunteer work that equals, what is it, 20 times the minimum wage, which is 147.10. They're still working all of that out. I do have flyers that'll go out to everybody with the specific rules and hopefully the paperwork to capture if they're going to do any volunteer work. I will make sure that you guys have this paperwork as well to track that time. Once it's, I get the final okay on it. But we shouldn't see anybody get kicked off until then. But what's happening also now is they're looking at the time, people who are considered ABODs will stay under the old rule until their recertification. So if they're already on benefits and they are due to recert, that's when they're going to look at those cases. All the new folks have to fall under the new ABOD rule. As confusing as it sounds, the local district finds it even more confusing. The tracking of this is going to be a nightmare for them as well as that individual. So they're trying to work it out and they're doing the best they can. But I said they're going to be putting out flyers. Some counties are doing some in-person orientations to try to let people know what's going on and what they can do. But that's where we are with that. But it's crazy right now. But hopefully we'll have enough information to make sure that everybody has what they need to keep their benefits intact. And with that, I think that is all I have. I will pass the mic to Brian.
Thanks, Amalia.
Thanks, Brian.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Brian McManus, and I just wanted to add to what you're hearing about preparations for this situation, to let you know where we stand with food supply. So it is important to note as we face this, that this is not a supply chain crisis like we've seen in previous emergencies. Our supply chains are very strong. And we are leveraging all of that to make sure that the food that's going to be needed to address what is certainly going to be a surge in need and service is available. So as Karen mentioned, we have from the purchased food and greatly increased our acquisition from the standard we would do for November and December, which is already quite high. And that those shipments are inbound or in our facility already. So from the purchase side, we're doing everything we can to put us in a very strong position, and that does include purchases through the Nourish New York program. So the items that you see available on the menu through that Nourish program, milk, eggs, produce items, yogurt, cheese, frozen fruits and vegetables, those things that we have been stocking through Nourish for years, we will also increase acquisition of those to make sure that they are available to you. Food donors have been notified of this situation. We have requested that they prioritize any offerings to us and that they understand the urgency of what you all and we all are facing here. And I can tell you anecdotally that the support has been encouraging from that sector. We have been receiving a lot of questions and concerns about the USDA food supply, because as we all know, that is a federal government food supply. And what I can tell you is that for the remainder of 2025, the USDA TFAP program looks quite strong for Food Bank of Central New York. Now, the federal government's role in that is by and large complete for the rest of 2025. We have 38 confirmed shipments of food scheduled for the remainder of the year. That is higher than last year at that time by a good amount. That will result in over 50,000 cases of food. These are executed contracts that are in the hands of private industry shipping, and the food system. The federal government does not play a role from here on out. And because of that, we feel a high degree of certainty that those will not be disrupted. Beyond January 1 is where we get into the unknown. But even beyond then, we do have executed contracts for food shipments going into 2026. Those are incomplete, but we do have certainty on some of those. So for the foreseeable future, for the next 2 months, TFAP should be strong. So if I say there's 50,000 plus cases of food coming in, generally speaking, I would look at that as a 3-month distribution. If we look at average rates of USDA distribution through the years, generally 16 to 17,000 cases out the door is where this network lands. So 50,000 puts us in a good spot. So those are encouraging things and things you can feel confident about. Furthermore, Food Bank of Central New York's infrastructure, our logistics, our operations team, we are positioned to manage this surge. As Karen mentioned, in terms of staffing and equipment, we're ready for this on our end, and we recognize that there is a great deal of unknown for all of us. We don't know what the impact will look like exactly. And so even though today we're as prepared as we can be, and I know you all are as well, we recognize that things can change somewhat rapidly. So what I would tell you today is whatever your need is at the partner agency level, please communicate that to your agency relations representative, to our agency relations team here. We are across the agency in constant contact, and every day we will know what the needs are, and we will leverage our operations team to react to that. We are here, all of us on this call, and there's a lot of people, have a shared goal, and that's to keep food flowing into your programs and onto people's tables. And from our end, we feel good about our capability to do that and to work with you. And we just ask that you let your agency relations team know what you need, and our commitment will be to respond to that need. I hope that we get through this relatively quickly, but if not, we'll be, as always, in constant contact and sharing any opportunities or any updates as needed. So from a food supply and logistics perspective, that's where we are today. And from here, I believe we will go to Michael Watrous for more information.
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. So welcome on this rainy day. I'm just going to cover a couple of quick follow-up things. Some of this to follow up what Brian McManus was saying. The communication piece is really important. If we don't know, we don't know. And if we don't know what we don't know, then we don't know what we don't know. So what we're going to ask you to do is to stay in touch with us. So many of you, I think the number is 99 food pantries are currently on the Service Insights platform, and we will be able to see reports from the Service Insight platform. However, we're going to look at those each week. It's not something that's set up to give us a daily rundown of who's the busiest. So what we're going to do is look at those each week in the next coming weeks. Kristen and her team have been very helpful to me here in helping us build out what that report will look like and what that process is going to be. So I'm very appreciative. And so for all of you on Service Insights, we will kind of have an idea, but we still need to hear from you. So to that end, we're also going to send out weekly pulse surveys over the next couple of weeks. It'll just be a quick 3 or 4 questions over email, asking you about the state of things in your communities and in your programs. And that will help us keep a tab on what's going on. As many of you know, we cover 11 counties, and that's 12,000 square miles. It's a pretty large area, but like I said, just keep responding to those pulse surveys as they come out. I'm going to commit to have those out to you on Friday morning. So if you folks could return those as soon as possible, that'll help us keep an eye on what's going on and give us kind of an ability to make any adjustments that we might need to make. Additionally, if you have a need that suddenly arises, because I know not everything's going to wait till Friday, but if you have a need that arises during the week, I'm going to ask you to email the agency relations team at agencyinfo. Brian Osmond, if you could put that in the chat again, please. I know you did earlier, but to email the agency relations team at agencyinfo@foodbankcny.org with any of your emerging needs. Like I said, we're in a lot of uncharted territory, so we're not really sure what's going to happen. But what will happen is the agency relations team will get those, and we'll share them with the leadership team so that we can move forward with responding to any unknowns that we didn't forecast for, let's say. So those are 2 really big pieces that we're asking of you. The other piece of information that I want to talk about is we've heard from many of you about the Food Finder platform that's currently on our website. And a few months ago, we started working with a new firm, a new vendor, to build out a whole new platform for those Food Finder referrals. Sorry, tripping over the referral piece there. So the Food Finder that's currently there will be replaced with a much better and we hope more interactive map. So in the coming weeks and months, you're going to get some additional information from us about what that looks like. And there's some fun additional features that are going to be on there. Now, this really doesn't help us today in this exact crisis, but please know that we are working on that. We have heard from so many folks with suggestions and ideas about what was working well and what wasn't working well. So we wanted to implement those, and just to let you know that we are working on updating that so it'll be a better product, not only for our neighbors, but also for you. So you folks can see who's in your community doing what types of distributions and what types of programs are available out there in other places as well. We hope to have that implemented in probably early December. Our team is meeting weekly with the vendor who's building that out for us. So we're actually going to ask them to rush it along a little faster if they could, to help make information more accessible. And like I said, we'll share some more information as that comes along, but I just want to throw out there that I think and I hope that the new platform will be liked by everybody. Let's put it that way. So, all right. Now I think we have some questions and answers. Brian Osmond, that would be up to you. Thank you.
Yeah, we've got some time for some questions. So folks want to type any questions they have in the chat. Like I said, if we can just keep it to what we've talked about in today's meeting, so that we can, make sure that we address a lot of those. I know there's probably a lot of folks have some very similar questions. So we had a couple of questions about additional deliveries, specifically to some specific counties, but I don't know who wants to address if we have the capability of doing additional deliveries.
Yeah, I'll address that, Brian. So the answer is we want to do whatever we can, whatever's needed. And so in a perfect system, let's say your program is finding yourself shorter with food on hand than you thought, and you're going to be open again in the near future, and there is not a scheduled delivery date between now and then, you would want to communicate that to the agency relations team. They're going to share that with the operations team to say, what can we do to get help to these folks out here? And we're going to all start working on a plan. And there are options available that we will certainly use. And my hope is that to anyone that is asking that question, that the answer would be yes. Yes, we'll get there. How you can help is recognizing ahead of time that to the extent that you're able, when you do have a scheduled delivery, now's probably the time to increase your acquisition to the extent that you're able, so that you are prepared to meet this, so that we can minimize these kind of emergency adjustments. As far as how the schedule is currently laid out for counties for the month of November, we are looking at that internally, and I think we're going to proactively try to address any gaps that we're identifying there. So that's something that we'll certainly update you if we're able to make any additional changes to that to offer things across the board. But as far as kind of case by case responses, anything that you work through the agency relations team with, it does immediately get addressed and brought to the right people, and we begin working on solutions right there.
Thank you. There was a question about their program is providing the 3 meals per person for 3 days. Are any designation parameters being waived during the SNAP crisis? Keep in mind that's the minimum requirement for your HIPNAP funding. So any type of waiver or anything like that would have to come from the New York State Department of Health, and we have not heard anything from them about that. So I'm not sure if anybody has anything else they want to add, but certainly if that were to happen, we can communicate that to you, but that would be their decision.
Yeah, Brian, because I'm meeting with them tomorrow, I will bring this up, especially because I think, we all know if the need from the SNAP recipients is coming to the pantries, how do we make sure that everyone that's coming gets food, and that, obviously we all can't make up what that gap is. The food banks can't nationwide. So is there a little leeway with this funding to reduce that qualification for the HIPNAP funds? So let me see what they say. And if there is a change, we will get that right out to you pretty quickly. So I have a note to ask tomorrow. Thank you for the question.
And keep in mind, if you're a program that's doing more than that, so if you're doing 5 days of food or 15 meals or 7 days and 21 meals, it may be a consideration that you want to make to back that down to that 3 meal or that 3 day 9 meal package in order to make sure that you're able to serve your neighbors for as long as you possibly can. So sustainability is obviously during this time is the most important thing. So let's see. There was a question about increasing the number of boxes for fresh foods distributions. Is that something that's being discussed as well, Brian?
Certainly could do that. That information again comes through Brian's agency relations team.
Yep.
So yeah, just let them know for a program like Fresh Foods, if you are seeing or expecting to see an increase, that's certainly reasonable and something that we will accommodate.
Thank you. Maybe this person wasn't here for Karen's remarks, but they said our last pantry day saw numbers increasing more than double the normal usage. We foresee the numbers increasing exponentially due to the number of calls from community members. Will more funds be available to support the increase, and will more free items be available? I just don't know if we want to reiterate what Karen said earlier. The governor did announce today additional funding for both HIPNAP and Nourish New York. Obviously, we don't know exactly what that will look like or what the amount of funding that we will receive, but potentially there is more funding coming from the state, and we may have more clarification on that shortly. So.
Yeah, Brian, I would also add in, now that I've been able to sit here and kind of calm myself from running from meeting to meeting. So, in addition to the governor and the state of New York, we do have Feeding America, who is trying to secure funds for all of the food banks across the nation. We are hearing that they plan to do some member grants. I don't know what the volume of that would be. I don't know what the direction for those funds would be, but as we know more, obviously, if these are for food, these would be dollars that would be utilized to support your operations. In addition to that, the meeting prior to this town hall was with Feeding New York State, which is the state association. They are hearing from groups who want to support the food banks across the state. So there's already some potential funding from them that would be coming through to help. And again, I don't know what the quantity of that is to know what the volume might be out into the community, but obviously whatever funds we can transfer into food to get to you so that we can get them to our neighbors, that's our goal right now. So, as we get the funds, they will be either coming to you via a grant or through some free food that you see on the menu. So, and we want to make sure that we're doing that equitably to all of you so that everyone has access to the free ones, the grant dollars, so that you have, ability to serve your neighbors as you're seeing them. So that's our goal.
Thank you. There was a question on getting information on the Onondaga area food pantries as to when they're open so that we can get calls asking for food. We can refer them to their areas. The best resource for that currently is going to be the current food finder. We know it doesn't work exactly how we'd like, but that's going to have the most up-to-date information as far as days and hours and things like that. I would also encourage your programs to make sure you look at your listing to make sure it's accurate. If anything has changed recently, please send us a message so we can make sure that your accurate days and hours are posted as well. So I think that's it for questions so far. We can give it another minute or two if anybody has any additional questions. Oh, sorry, I just didn't scroll down. Let's see. Nope, never mind. I did scroll down. So we'll give it another minute if anybody has any questions. Is there any consideration being given to changing delivery requirements during this? What do you want to? Oh, Dan has a question we can get to in a second. So there was a question about delivery requirements. If there's any
understanding the question.
I think currently they said they have to order 20 cases of free and 20 cases of paid for free delivery. I don't think there's any plans to change the delivery requirements at this time from that.
There's no plans to change that at this time. No, but again, if anybody that's experiencing a hardship, please share that.
There's a question about 211 being linked to Food Finder. I think 211 gets a lot of their information from our Food Finder. So both of those should be fairly accurate. Now, 211 may have information for programs that the food bank doesn't work with, so, and other resources as well. So that's always a good resource to use. There was a question, a media report covered a pantry that due to current benefit issues had twice the number of food recipients show up, and the pantry completely ran out of food. If we have similar issues, it's likely that a portion of our registered participants waiting in line won't get food. Any thoughts to ordering more than usual? I think that's a good practice. If you have the storage capability, making sure that you're prepared as you possibly can be. The other thing, if you don't have storage capability, another thing to keep in mind, especially if you're local in the Syracuse area here, we do offer pickups Monday through Friday. So if there's only a few things you need, certainly you can put a pickup order in as well.
Brian, Dan Ryan had a question.
Yeah, sorry, Dan. I was meant to get to you, but I kept reading. So I will, let me see if I can unmute you here. All right, go ahead, Dan. You should be able to unmute. Oh, you actually have to click it, I think.
All right, good. Am I good now?
Yeah, you're good.
Perfect. All right. Thank you all for everything you do, first of all. I had a couple questions. I'll just say them all up front and then leave them there. Karen had mentioned early on that information that we receive via email is to be kind of a close hold. I was just looking for a little bit more clarification of is it only to the person that receives the email, or could I let my leadership team know? But not the volunteers, or kind of just a little bit more color on that would be good to know. In terms of panic, I'll just kind of want to let you know what I'm seeing in the last 2 days is more of increase in panic amongst individuals that are coming in the doors and people that have never been to us before and that level. So I'm just trying to figure out, I don't want to have there be a panic run on the food bank. So in terms of what makes sense for us as a food site, I know there's no requirement on how many days you should have or shouldn't have. I know there's never a specific range, but at this point in time, what would be your advice on how many days of food you ought to have on hand as we go into, November, December. So.
Well, it's kind of a tough one, Dan.
Yeah,
I think, to the best of your safe food storage capacity, I think is probably recommended right now. I would say, because we just don't know what's going to happen. I'm also hoping there's not a lot of panic, and that we're able to calmly and collectively help our communities. So I would say, if you have extra storage space, you may want to use it. I think because we may not know how many people we see next week or the next 3 weeks.
Yeah, I can touch on the communication one, Dan. So, I feel that the information we share is stuff that you can use with your leadership team. Probably most of the time volunteers. I think the concern is information received then being shared back out as misinformation, where it almost, and I understand that, this is the time for all of us to do a call to action, to ask for some extra support and help. I just want to make sure the information being shared is correct and accurate. And, we've had a situation recently where it said the food bank told us this, and it was complete misinformation that got posted. So that's our concern. We are sharing very transparent, very up to date, and I want to be very honest with all of you so that you have that information. So I feel that can be shared with your leadership team so that they also have that knowledge and can operate your operations to the best of your ability and, to how you want to. My ask is just please don't share something out on social regarding that email or, the information in the email. That's why if you see a social post from the food bank, share away. Just don't try to recap an email into a social post. How's that? Thank you.
I do want to clarify something because there was a question about the minimum 3-day, 3-meal per day package. Somebody mentioned every other week. That minimum meal package is actually a monthly package. So if you choose to go beyond that and do every other week or give more than that, you certainly are more than welcome to do that. So if you have the resources to give more than that 3 days of food, you're more than welcome to do that. The food bank does not restrict, or the state does not restrict giving above and beyond that, or doing it on a more regular basis than once a month. But the minimum requirement is that 9-meal 3-day package once per month per member of the household. There was a question about when pantries can apply for HIPNAP funding. You can apply directly through the food bank when the application is available, which is typically in the spring. So the application is not currently available to apply for HIPNAP, but the food bank administers HIPNAP for our area. So see if we have any other questions. And again, Donna said we follow the format of food bank points. Should we increase the amounts if we can? If you can increase the amount of points that you're offering folks or the amount of food during this time, certainly that's helpful. But again, it's important to remain sustainable and be able to continue to feed folks for however long is needed. So, any other questions? Or if anybody wants to raise their hand, we certainly can unmute like we did with Dan as well, but we can give it a minute or two. Okay, I think that seems like that's a...
No,
oh,
Stephanie
Steph has a
her
question,
hand. Yeah.
sorry. It popped up. All right, give me 1 second, Steph. All right, you should be able to unmute.
There we go. Couldn't find it. Sorry. Yeah, sorry, I came to this late, so I apologize if you're repeating yourself, but at least it's a yes or no. I've heard kind of mixed messages about being able to serve outside your area. I've had a couple of families come saying that they were turned away just because they were one zip code over. Is that true? Like, can we serve outside of our area or okay.
Yeah, so I mean, we leave it up to each individual program to establish, the area that you serve. So if you want to make exceptions and serve an expanded service area during this time, that's perfectly fine. So that's really up to you guys to decide how you want to handle that. So. Any other questions? I think that looks like about it. Just to reiterate, please keep in communication with us if there's anything that you need. Please reach out to our agency relations team, and we do encourage to fill out those pulse surveys because it will give us a really good idea of what's happening at your programs. So please do fill those out. And again, if there's any questions, feel free to reach out to us. And thank you all for attending and for all that you do. It really makes a big impact on the community, especially in this time of a lot of uncertainty for our neighbors and especially new neighbors that have maybe never had to use the food pantry before because they always relied on those SNAP benefits. Keep that in mind that there may be a lot of folks that haven't had to experience this in the past, so they may not know the process or anything like that. So.
Yeah, that's actually a good point, Brian. So maybe I'll jump in quick and just add something for everyone. So we, and I believe it's up on our website already. So we are trying to have a resource there on the website because like you said, a lot of SNAP recipients, they get SNAP and that actually keeps them out of your line at the food pantry, right? That's the goal. So a lot of neighbors that you may see are new. They don't know how to find a food pantry or a food, access food somewhere close to them. So we have shared on our website, how to find food in their area, whether that's a pantry, a mobile food pantry, a fresh food site. It talks about food sense. But then we're also telling them, this is what you can expect when you go to the food pantry, because there's been some questions and some phone calls about, do I need to bring this? Do I need to verify this? So we're trying to be very clear what they can expect when they actually come to your programs, and what they'll need, what you might ask them, so that they are, comfortable, maybe a little more comfortable than, it gets them comfortable, hopefully, to come and ask you for that food that they're in need of. So we do have that. I will be sharing that with Onondaga County, and they're going to actually send that out to all of the SNAP recipients so that they have the information directly in hand. So we do plan on sharing that this afternoon with them to get to them. And I guess I would just add to Brian's thank you quickly. If you were here for the pandemic, we've been through this, and we do this together. We are definitely better together. We can't do this without you. So we thank you for what you do every day, for the compassion, the dignity that you show the neighbors in times like this and every day. And I just want to remind all of us that this is heavy. So please make sure you're taking care of yourselves too. Make sure that you're okay. And if we can support any way for that, please let us know. I know some of you have probably gone through some de-escalation training. So hopefully we don't need to utilize that training that everyone went through. But there are tools and resources that we can help share if we find that we need them as we go through these next couple of weeks. And hopefully it's not even a couple of weeks. Our hope is that this is settled quickly for all of us. So thank you.
Thank you, Karen. With that, we'll close it out. And again, thank you, everybody. Please let us know what you need. We're here to support you in any way that we can. So with that, I hope everybody has a great rest of their day and a good weekend. And please just keep in contact with us. Thank you all and have a great day.
Bye, everyone.